Hi, I'm Linda from Buttercup Cakes, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make my signature crackled wood panels. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started with our crackled wood panels we're going to need some paste, and I like to use Renshaw's flower modelling paste. It's quite stiff, it rolls really thinly, and it's just great for doing this effect. We're going to need two colours of paste, so I've got a paler one and I've got a darker one. The pale one has been coloured with a tiny little bit of ivory gel paste. So it started off as white and I've added a tiny bit of gel paste in ivory to it just to create a slightly off-white colour. You could also use a touch of brown if you haven't got ivory. Then we're also going to need a darker colour for the back of the crackled wood panels. This is 50% flower modelling paste and 50% ordinary sugar paste. And I've mixed the two together and added some brown to it to give it a dark brown colour. Okay, so let's get started making our panels. So I've got my pale coloured paste here, which is the flower modelling paste that's been coloured with a little bit of ivory. I'm just going to need a little bit to soften it up. It is a very stiff paste, so we just need to soften it up a little bit just so it can roll it out. And then if I start with it being in like a little bit of a sausage, I'm going to use my rolling pin just to flatten that down a little bit and then start to roll it. And we want it to be quite thin. You could do this on a pasta machine, which really speeds up the process, especially when you've got quite a few panels to make. But a rolling pin works fine, it's just a little bit slower. So keep rolling and rolling till it's really thin. And I'm trying to create a long strip, and you'll see why in a second. Let's keep turning it around. Then I'm going to go the other way just to make it a little bit wider. So you have to put quite a bit of pressure on the paste in order to get it nice and thin. If you get a few creases or wrinkles in it as you go along, or even a few little tears, that doesn't matter because it all adds to the rustic effect of the wood panels. Okay, so you can see from that small piece I'm now getting quite a large piece of paste. And then so you can see that that's quite thin. I could go slightly thinner with it. In fact, I think I will just go a little bit thinner. The thinner it is, the better the crackle that you'll get on it when we come to crackle it later. Okay, so that's probably fine. So I don't know if you can see what thickness it is, but it's quite... It's not as thin as you'd have it for making flowers, but it's still fairly thin. Then you need to work out how many panels you're going to need to go around your cake. Most of the panels that I make are roughly about 2 inches wide. So you have to kind of work out what size cake, if you're doing a 6-inch cake, an 8-inch, a 10-inch cake, and work out how many panels you're going to need to go all around the cake. And also think about the height of your cake as well. So I'm going to cut some panels now. I'm just going to level off this here now. I'm going to use a knife just to get that bottom edge straight. It doesn't have to be perfect because the shape will distort slightly as we put the panels together. Okay, so if I've got most of my cakes are about between 5 and 6 inches high, so I would say I don't need my panels to be any taller than 6 inches. So I'll just put a mark in there as to where 6 inches is. Just make a few marks along there. And if you have some that have got like quite a wavy top to them, that's fine too. So I'll just cut along there now. Some of them you only need to do about 5 inches. This doesn't have to be perfect. Let's go along there. Okay, let's get rid of that one on the end. And then I need them to be approximately 2 inches wide. So if I just go mark along here, it's about the 2 inch mark. Be there. And then cut them. And I will still, I'll end up with some shorter ones here, but that's fine because I may be able to use some shorter ones as well. So again, I'll just do them about 2 inches. Okay, so I'll just put the paste that I've got left over, we'll use that to roll some more out. So I'll just pop that to one side. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I've got 8 panels there. Probably going to need, to go round a 9-inch cake, you're probably going to need probably about 18 panels, and it's always better to have a few spare ones. So you can see that, you know, you do have to get all this preparation done. So that's the first part. Now, what we need to do with these now, as you can see they're very kind of floppy. We need to let them dry. And the best way I find to let them dry is to pop them on one of these foam drying trays, just because it allows a little bit of air to circulate underneath them. If you haven't got one of these, I would put it on some baking parchment or something like that. And I would just let's get another one and just pop them on there. And these need to be like half dry before we can actually do any more work with them. So got a little speck of something on there. You can either just leave them to dry naturally overnight, as long as there's still a little bit of movement in them, that's absolutely fine. And it will depend on the conditions of where you're working. So if you're in a very humid place, it might take longer to dry. If you want to speed up the process, and this is something that I do quite often, I actually pop them in the oven on a very low setting, probably 60 degrees Celsius in the oven, in a fan assisted electric oven. And I put them in there either with the door open, and even the foam tray will just go into the oven and it won't melt at that temperature. And just pop them in the oven for probably about 10 minutes, but keep the door open. And you can also have some drying on the opened door as well. If you've got something like an Aga, or you've got an airing cupboard or somewhere warm, or if you can put them on top of a radiator, somewhere where they're going to get a little bit of heat, that will actually speed up the drying process and you can get on to the next stage much more quickly. So I'm going to leave those to dry, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the backing and how to crackle them. So we're going to need a backing for our panels. So once your panels are at a semi-dry stage, it's then time to make the actual backing for them. So we're using the brown paste here. You could use any colour you like, as long as you've got a pale colour and a dark colour. So I've got this brown, which is 50% flour modelling paste and 50% sugar paste. So it's slightly softer than the paler one. I'm just going to roll this out. And this will need to be a little bit thicker than we rolled for the pale panels. Again, the paste is still fairly stiff, so I need to put quite a bit of pressure on it. And try and keep it in a slightly rectangular shape. The panels will fit on it better. Okay, so that's probably slightly thicker than the pale ivory colour that we did. You can see there it's a little bit thicker. Okay, so this is going to form the back of our panels, and we're going to lay the panels on top of it, and that's the next stage that we'll do. Okay, so our panels are now fairly dry. They've been drying for quite some time. I've used the oven method on mine, so it's probably taken about 10 minutes for them to get to this stage. Now, to test that they are in the right stage for crackling them, the best way to do this is to just take one of the panels and just literally just bend it a little bit, and can you see how it's starting to get those little crackles in it? And that's what you need. So can you see how it's cracking there? I'll show you with another one. So this one here. So just gently, just bend it so that you can see that it's starting to get a little bit of a crackle. And you know then that that's at the right stage for putting it onto the backing. Okay. So here I have my brown backing paste ready rolled out, and I'm going to take the panels that we know are okay, that they're crackling. You can see it's just crackling like that. And we're going to stick them onto this brown backing, just to make sure that they are crackling okay before we get on there. If you just turn it upside down and just slightly just bend it so that it's starting to crack a little bit more. And it doesn't matter if you get a little extra, like little cracks in it that split like that, that's absolutely fine. Then you need some water, just ordinary water. You use cool boiled water, and then just brush some water on the back. Don't over wet it, but make sure that you've got it all covered. And then you're going to just stick that on there. Okay. And then we take the next one. And this was the one that I'd crackled a little bit before, but I'm just going to do it a little bit more, just to give it a helping hand. Just give it another little crack. Get some water on the back of it. And stick it on the backing. Try and get as many as you can onto that dark brown backing that we've got rolled out. So here's one that I haven't done any crackling on, so I'm just going to bend it over that way and just gently crack it. A few more. And you just repeat the process until you've filled this paste that you've got rolled out. Just a bit more crackling. And there, and the next one. And just pop it on there. I could possibly get another one on the end there. I'll just see if I can get one more on there. Yeah, probably get another one on there. So let's do that again. Just give it a bit of a crack. Oops, so a little bit's fallen off. That doesn't matter. I'll show you what happens with that. Let's keep that to one side. I'm going to pop that on there. Just stick it all back on. And the little bit that fell off there. Several little bits, aren't there? Where did that one go? Was that one there? Can't work out how that went back together now. Was that like that? Oh, there we go. So don't worry if it does break up like that, it's absolutely fine. And again, it adds to that rustic effect. Okay, so I just wiped that little bit of water off there. Now what we need to do now is to divide all these up. So just with a knife, just go in between and just make some more panels. And you're just going to trim each of them down now. So I'm going to trim away the brown. And make sure you keep these bits that you're trimming off, because you can reuse those for your next lot of panels that you do. Let's put that to one side. Doesn't have to be perfectly trimmed because we've got more stages before they're finished. A bit of brown there. And because that's got a nice uneven edge, that will make a really nice one for going around the cake. So I'll just trim that to that shape. Okay, so there we have it. We've got those nice panels there. Now, what we need to do now is to roll over them to crackle them even more. So I'll just move some of them out of the way. And for this I'll use a small rolling pin. Now it's a little bit wet on there from the water, so I'm just going to wipe that over slightly and I'm going to just put a little bit of corn flour on the top so that my rolling pin doesn't stick to it. And then very gently, I'm going to put my small rolling pin on it, and I'm going to rock it backwards and forwards and just give a little bit of a rocking motion. And can you see how it's all starting to crack? And then I'll turn it round and I'll go the other way. Now the shape will distort slightly as you're doing this, but that's fine because we trim it all back later. And you can see the nice dark brown coming through. Now this bit here hasn't got any crackles on it, so I'm just literally going to just do it by hand, just create a few more little crackles in it and then go over it again. Can you see how that's crackled now? You can also go diagonally, just so you get the effect that you want. Crackle that bit a little bit more as well. Okay, so you can see how the shape's distorted there, but that's absolutely fine. We just trim away the brown again, and so don't waste any of these bits that you've cut off. You can use those for the back of another panel. Just trim around there and across the bottom. And then I just set that to dry again on a foam tray, so pop that there. I'll show you again with another one. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of corn flour on the top so that my rolling pin doesn't stick. Get the small rolling pin and gently roll over it, but with a bit of a rocking motion, so you get that crackle. Turn it round and go the other way. And it's getting some beautiful crackles on it. I can go diagonally as well. And you can see how it stretches as you're doing this. So your 2-inch panels are ending up slightly bigger. And that bit again, that bit's not got in as much crackling as I would like, so I'm just going to manipulate it gently just to create a few more extra crackles on it, and I'll go over it again. And if you get a gap that's slightly too wide there, just push it back in. You know, because it's not dry, you can just play with it till you get the effect that you want. And then again, I trim away the dark backing. Okay, and I'll just go around the edge there. And that's another one. And I'll pop that on there to dry. So you just continue that process until you've got lots of panels made, and you will then leave those to dry. Again, you could leave them overnight. You don't want them to be absolutely rock hard and to set really solid, because you won't be able to place them around the cake properly then. With the curve of the cake, you won't be able to bend them round. But obviously, as they are there, there's no way that you can put them against the cake. They'll just flop. So you need them to be semi-dry. And again, you can speed up the drying process by popping them either in the oven or near the open door of an oven or somewhere warm. And you just continue until you've got enough panels made to go around your cake. So I've got a selection of the panels here. I've got a ruler, I've got a stainless steel ruler as well, and I've also got a stainless steel scraper, which is brilliant for just cutting the panels to shape. Okay, so we need the panels to be at least 5 inches tall, because that's the height of the cake that I'm going to put it on. If your cake is going to be 6 inches tall, you need the panels to be at least 6 inches. But you do want a little bit of variation between them just to allow a more natural look as you place the panels around the cake. Okay, so I'll show you with a scraper first. If I get one panel, I'm going to just turn it round, just pop that against the side there, press down, and just neaten off with the knife, and I've got a nice neat edge. Turn it round again, do the other side. And you want them at roughly about 2 inches. It's not crucial if, you know, some can be slightly wider or slightly narrower. It all adds to the effect. So I've got a nice neat edge there, and I also need to make sure that I've got a straight bottom edge. So I need to decide which I'm going to have as the top and which is going to be the bottom. So I think I'm going to have this as the top of the cake. So I'm just going to trim off a tiny bit on the bottom to give a nice straight edge that will sit around the cake like that. So that's that one. And that can also be, so you can see that the stainless steel scraper just works really well for that. If you haven't got one of those and you've just got an ordinary plastic ruler, you can do the same thing again. We can just go along, as long as you've got a straight edge to cut against. Just cut against there like that, and again on there. And again, I need to decide which is going to be the top and which is going to be the bottom. So this one, I quite like this one here because it's got a slightly sloped top to it. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit of that brown and then give a straight bottom. There we are. And this one's measuring now just over 6 inches. And I may need, as I start to put them around the cake, I may need to trim it a little bit shorter depending on how they sit. So you just work your way through all your panels. This is with a stainless steel ruler. So whatever you use, you know, you're going to get the same effect. You just need a nice, firm, straight edge to cut against. And make sure that they are equal width. And then again, I need to just decide which is going to be the top and which is going to be the bottom. And I quite like this one for the top. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off the bottom. There we are. So you can see how you just go along and make sure you've got all your panels nice and neatly trimmed. So I've got a nice straight side and a flat bottom. And then we'll move on to dusting them.